Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing off my most recently completed lightsaber commission, the Luke VeeOne from Korbanth, with a crystal reveal. Now this lightsaber was sent in to me as an empty hilt to get installed with a Profi v3.9 and a Neopixel setup. So Korbanth sells two different types of Luke VeeOne hilts, one with the crystal chamber and a reveal board, and one without those two features. This originally started as one without either the reveal board or the crystal chamber. As my customer and I were discussing what could be done with the hilt, we ended up reaching out to Korbanth to see if we can get an extra crystal chamber. It seems like Korbanth makes these in-house, so he was able to make one and send it to me. So now that I had a crystal chamber to work with, I decided to go with the Shadow Foil Props chassis from Korbanth's website. And altogether, this lightsaber came out really well, and I'm excited to show it off to you guys. So let's get right into it. To start, I'm going to go over everything that came with this hilt, and then I'll get into the install process, the kind of troubles I ran into along the way, and then finally I'll show it off and show off everything that I set up in this lightsaber and how it all functions. With that being said, let's go over everything that I have set up on here, and then I'll show you the extra things that came with it. As you can see, I've got the ribbed grip section that's cut out for the crystal reveal, and I have the display emitter, or I suppose you could call this the blade plug. And then we have the sound vented pommel. Everything extra are these three things. This is pretty self-explanatory. This does not have any sound venting. This is just the display pommel for if you want it to be more movie accurate, prop accurate. This is the blade retention emitter, or the emitter you're going to be using when you put the blade in. It gives you a set screw. It has a little bit more of blade depth support, just to add some structure to it. I'll show you how to put all these on in a second. This is the grip with even rings. So these are not prop accurate, but they're more the idealized rings, where they're the same dimensions, and I'll show you what I mean by that when we show off the next one. This is the more prop-accurate grip section, and as you can see, the rings are different widths. You've got a wider, a thinner, a wider, wider, thinner, wider, thinner, and thinner. This is what was on the prop. They were not evenly milled out, I guess, so you have something that's not idealized, but more accurate to the movie prop. And I'll show you in comparison. You can really see the difference when they're right next to each other. So I guess I'll just show you how to attach all of these different sections. This one up top, just unscrew it by hand here like that. Sometimes it can be a little tight, so if it's not coming off at first, I did add some WD-40 to it, because the first difficulty I ran into with this hilt was removing this part of the blade, or this blade plug, because for whatever reason it was super stuck onto the top of the lightsaber. I was not able to do it by hand, so what I ended up doing was I bought a vise. I went out and bought a vise to attach to my desk. I've always wanted one, but I guess this was an excuse for me to go out and get it, because I haven't. But it's a pretty small one, but it was good enough to get the job done. I put towels around here so it wouldn't damage the emitter, and then I attached it to the vise and unscrewed it. It took me a while, and it actually didn't work perfectly at first, but I think it loosened up, and then I was able to unscrew it. So if it ever does get stuck, just hold on to this section, and then just unscrew this as best you can there, and it will just pop open. There you go. The reason you want to hold on to this is because you don't want to unscrew it. I don't think there's actually going to be any real risk of breaking the wires on the inside, just with how this is set up. If you see inside, it comes with its own Neopixel holder. That's the black thing. It's actually a separate piece than these metal pieces here, the aluminum, and I assume this is copper, because it is oxidizing here. And I guess I'll show you the next section if you just unscrew it from there. This is how the emitter and next section is set up in this lightsaber. You've got its own blade side connector holder right here, right around the blade side connector. That is a separate piece from this black part, as you can see, and it actually would spin around with the other one if it's loose. So they're actually separate pieces, which allows pretty easy install, and it's nice not having a 3D printed holder. but it also means that you don't really have to worry too much about this section unscrewing and breaking the wire connection. So it's a lot more sturdy than other thin necks that I've made. In any case, you still want to make sure that when you do unscrew this and you do the blade, you always want to brace the neck just in case. But that's how you remove the neck, and that's how you remove the emitter part, and then you just replace it with the blade side, or the blade holder emitter. And of course you don't need to remove the neck ever, really, but you can get a good look on how this works. So this connector connects the chassis, the soundboard, and the speaker and everything else down below, connects it to the emitter so that it all works. The pins connect the circles, or pins touch the circles. Each circle is different. So if you want to know more about those, watch my tutorial on how to build lightsabers. How to build a Neopixel lightsaber, that is. So there you go, we've got the blade emitter on there. And then to replace the pommel cap, you just unscrew the pommel and then put on the new one. Pretty easy, but I'm going to stick with the sound vented pommel because of course that is what this is. It's an FX installed lightsaber, so we're going to need that sound venting. There you go. If you do ever want to reorient these cubes or the D-ring, or I guess the triangle ring here, the thing that attaches to a hook, you just unscrew this a little bit and then you can turn that however you want. But I highly recommend just leaving it there, tightening it as much as you can, and then not bothering with it anymore. Now, for the grip section, to do that, oops. Sorry about that, just turn that on. To do that, you just
lightsaber. Yes.
Hold on to that.
A Jedi's weapon.
You unscrew here, take it off. I'm going to take the whole chassis out at the moment, just to turn off the lightsaber. There you go. Turned off. We'll have a look at that later. Now, to swap out the grenade section, you just unscrew this. I call it the grenade section because if you don't know the history of lightsabers, this was actually a World War II British rifle grenade on the Obi-Wan lightsaber, and then that's what this was copied off of, was that original prop piece. So that's why I call it that way. So then you just thread it on, and there you go. You've got the idealized rings, and then you've got the prop accurate uneven rings. I'm going to go back to the crystal reveal one because honestly that one's my favorite and it shows things off super well, especially for this demonstration. So we'll just get right back into it, put everything back together. So I guess to start off my demonstration here, I'm going to go into, I'm going to put all these things away. I'm going to go into the chassis. This is a really nice chassis. As you can see, we've got I think this is a CNC machined crystal chamber, which is the first time I've ever worked with one. It's really cool. All of this is raw materials, so I believe this is raw copper and raw brass and raw aluminum for the most part. I don't know what the tubes are, but since they are the raw materials, they should weather naturally over time. So the more you handle it, the more it's exposed to air and whatnot, it should begin to oxidize and age on its own, which is really cool. This crystal actually came in two separate pieces, so you've got the bottom part and the top part. You just put them in, glue it in, and you're all set. This top section is the Neopixel connector that connects to the emitter. It's got a Neopixel, single Neopixel LED in there, a mini one, that shines through the tube to the crystal. And then we've got a Neopixel LED, you can see it down there, right at the top of this chassis that shines at the other part of the crystal. So it's not lit up directly to the crystal, but the LED at the top and at the bottom shine through it all, and it works really great. These set screws are what hold it in place. You will never need to undo those once this is installed, like it is right now. This connector is really neat. I'll be going over how this works with the clamp thing in a second, the clamp controls and lights. This also I came across some issues with that I'll be going over and showing how to avoid it if you were to install this yourself, and just going over it for the new owner of this lightsaber. So, this is the battery. The negative is towards the kill switch and the speaker. The positive is towards the crystal chamber. This is the Profi V3.9 soundboard. It's being held in place here. You can have access to the SD card there. What I do is I just take some tweezers, I grab them from the sides and just wiggle it out, and then that's how you do it. The config I have set up on the board already, and it's also in the SD card. And my customer sent me the config to set up. I just made some modifications to make it work with the more modern Profi OS 7, and I just adjusted a few things to make it all work appropriately. So that's about it. I will be going over the next issue, the one that took me the way longer than it should have, but the longest thing. But the next issue I ran into was the control box. So let's have a look. In this control box, you've got a cool PCB on the inside that has the LEDs that shine through the green and the red arrows, and it has the activation and auxiliary buttons. When I first installed it, the activation button was broken. So the little black piece that gets indented, I can actually show you the broken one. So this one, this black piece right there that gets pressed in was broken, and I actually took one of the black pieces from the Profi V2.2 version of this PCB, and I dissected, if it'll do that, I dissected the button on this one and replaced the black piece, the broken one from here, with the fixed one from here. It doesn't work that great, but it does actually still work, which is crazy considering I really just tore it apart and put it back together, not knowing what I was doing. It doesn't click as well, just tactile wise and sound wise, but it still works. So I got it to work, which is pretty cool. But Korbanth was kind enough to send me a replacement one, which is fully intact. So that's what's in here right now. What's cool about these is when you unscrew this and that, you can take the board off. I'm going to actually show you that. And this will be useful for the customer as well in case anything starts getting weird, and I'll explain to you why. So you just unscrew this, and then you can unscrew, oh, that's not big enough. Let's see, maybe this one. Yep. So if you unscrew both of those, we can see how this works. This is a really cool setup. So you've got this little bar, if it'll focus. It's got this little bar with pins. These pins are not soldered in or anything, they just sort of sit here, and they go into this channel. And these spring pieces stick out ever so slightly inside, and that is what makes contact with these contacts on the chassis. So that's what delivers all the information and the power from the board to the control box, which is really neat. Now, it gets even cooler because this PCB isn't secured in by anything. It just sort of sits there. And there's no solder involved at all. So how it works is you put the pins all in place here. There we go. You put the control box over top it, and then you can see the top of the pins are showing. And those make contact with these silver parts on the PCB, if it'll focus. There we go, you can see the silver parts. So no solder involved, it's just pressure contact, I believe. But the issue that I ran into was, for some reason, when all this was set up, and if you ever do put these together, make sure, I'm going to zoom in here, make sure that you put this on gently and you don't squish the buttons, because that might have broken the button before. But make sure you do it gently, you pull it as far away from the button as possible so you're not going over top it, you're going in front of it, and then you can press it. There you go. And then we could just put everything back together and screw it in place. So the issue that I ran into was everything was working. Well, at first the arrows weren't working, but that was just a config situation that I had to figure out. So I spent a while figuring out why the arrows weren't lighting up and whatever else. But the main issue was the fact that the auxiliary button wouldn't work. So when you pressed it, it didn't do anything. So what I did a lot of troubleshooting, a few hours of it, figuring out whether it was my wiring or in the config or something, but then I narrowed it down to something really ridiculous. If you see this screw, it cannot be tight, like at all. If it is, then the auxiliary switch doesn't work. You can't press it at all, nothing registers. So you have to make sure that it's loose. So just barely tight enough so it's not actually tight. So if it's loose here and then you just spin it, once it meets the slightest bit of resistance, that's when you stop. For whatever reason, if it's tight at all, it doesn't work. So the auxiliary just didn't work, and I narrowed it down to that, and it works perfectly. So just keep that in mind. If anything ever messes up, you can also replace it with the board that I guess fixed. So it will be in the lightsaber case with everything else. But with that in mind, that pretty much covers everything that went wrong with this section and why it started taking forever for me to get this hilt finished. But the longest thing was the speaker. This speaker is not the speaker that came with the DIY kit that I bought. This is a speaker that I had on hand. It's a KR Saber speaker, because the first one that I had, it had a wire sticking out the side. Now, I've had this issue happen once before when I was making a lightsaber for my friend. One of the wires that connect the little tabs you solder to stuck out too much on the side, and it went a little bit over this lip. So when it's inside the lightsaber and you put this on, it rubs it, and then eventually it rubs off the coating to protect it, and then it's just a raw wire. When that wire touches raw metal, it causes weird things to happen. So, for instance, the accent LED here would start flickering, or it just wouldn't be bright and it wouldn't cooperate. So it started causing a lot of issues. So I could have put Captain tape on it, which is what I did in the beginning. But it's pretty ugly, and you want to have a nice looking chassis. And I'll zoom out here. You want to have a nice looking chassis. You don't want to have tape ruining it. So I ended up taking the speaker out, which did break it because I had it glued in and stuff. So the speaker did end up breaking. So I replaced it with the KR Saber's one, which didn't have any wires sticking out on the side. I don't know whether it's the maker that causes these issues to happen, or whether it's just luck of the draw or something whenever it gets made. But in any case, it didn't have any issues with sticking out. But what it did have issues with was the fact that it seems to be a bit wider. So when I put it into the chassis, it expanded the chassis ever so slightly. So this started sticking out a little bit, which meant when I put this in, it just wouldn't move. So what I spent many hours on in a couple days, or a few hour sessions of sanding. So I ended up sanding the inside. If you see here the little lip, the first lip you see, I started sanding that entire section with a Dremel, hand sanding with some files. Did that for a very, very long time until I could slide it on here without any resistance, and I can turn it without any resistance. So that's what took the longest. So this kind of was a pain to install, but in the end it was really, really worth it, because it's just really, really cool. All in all, this is a really, really cool chassis system and crystal chamber and reveal. So I wanted it to look nice and work nice, as nicely as I could get it. So I guess to get started on this lightsaber, let me zoom out a bit more. To get started on this lightsaber, you've got the chassis. The kill switch is at the bottom, so you just flick it on.
Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. My sister has it.
Now with my original config, normally I like to have the crystal chamber sort of pulse and then have cool effects when you turn it on or turn it off. But since I was installing this with the customer's config file, there were like a ton of fonts and blade styles on there, and I couldn't figure out what the blade styles were, so I ended up making the crystal chamber just mimic the blade. How this is set up is this has 4 different blades, I guess. The main blade, then you've got the crystal chamber LEDs, so this is 1 blade, and then you've got 1 blade for the green arrow and 1 blade for the red arrow. But this is pretty much it for the chassis. I told you how to operate this. You plug that into the computer for all of your customization stuff, and if you need to know or don't know how, it's all in the description of the video. But to operate this lightsaber, you're going to want to align this guide rail with the middle of this clamp, because if you see, I've got a guide screw. So that black screw that I showed you earlier, it acts as a sort of guide. Don't know if you can see it down there, but it's past the gold pins. But it acts as a guide. So you just put it in, and then you'll see it go in here. If it's not aligned, it goes that far. If it is aligned, it goes all the way. And then you just you clockwise turn it until it stops, and that's when everything is connected. You can see the LEDs. I have it set up for the cave sequence. So in the deleted scenes, there's a cave sequence where you can see these blink. This is the same sequence. When you turn the lightsaber on, I have the green staying on, and whenever it has any kind of clash or special effects, the red one blinks. And technically the green also flickers a bit. And as it was set up in the config, to turn off the lightsaber, you have to hold it for a couple seconds, and then it turns off. Now, I'm going to show you the part that I set up and spent so long working on to make it as smooth as possible. I also greased up the threads, added WD-40 and everything, so this is super, super smooth now. You just put it on, screw it in, and it's super smooth. It's a little tight at the end, but it's the perfect amount of resistance to hold everything in place because it's just pushing everything up. To unscrew the lightsaber, you just turn it, and it will disconnect the thing because it moves it a little bit, but that you're taking it apart anyways. So you just unscrew it, twist it the rest of the way, and then take it out. And to put it back in, you do that. I think this came out. I think this came out super, super well. I'm very happy with how it works now, with the fact that it's not screwing up the speaker. The speaker's not messing up any of the lights or accents, and then the whole pommel section in the lower half screws on and off super smooth now. So I'm very glad I spent all that time working on it, and hopefully you like it. Let's just go over how the lightsaber works. The top one's going to be the power switch.
Step aside.
Alright, you turn it off by holding it. The bottom is the auxiliary.
Are you a Jedi?
You press it to go forward
I am.
in your font selection, and then you
I've come to stop you.
point it down to go backwards in your font selection.
Here's a lightsaber.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
It's got the gesture controls. And then this is something that I set up recently, is all of the volume menu stuff and having vocal tracks for all of the menu options and whatever else.
Battery level 100%.
And then if you hold down the auxiliary button and tap the, or hold down the activation and tap the auxiliary button,
Volume menu.
it goes into volume menu, and then if you turn it, you can raise and lower the volume.
Exiting volume menu.
Smooth swing, of course. It's got clash effects and everything else it probably has. And I'll just cycle through all of the sound fonts that is installed on here. I won't activate each and every one of them because it's going to take forever, but I'll just demonstrate that they're all on here.
I've come to stop you.
Are you a Jedi?
I am.
Master Skywalker.
Where is he?
I might as well ignite one of these red ones. just so you can have a look at the crystal chamber.
It's just Ben these days.
Blue.
Ben Kenobi?
Battery level 100%.
That's what happens if you press both at the same time. Accidentally pressed in the middle.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
The dark saber.
Ahsoka Tano.
Rey Skywalker.
Ben Solo.
Pringles.
Split.
Ancient integration.
Seismic charges. Yogurt! I hate yogurt! Even with strawberries!
Prepare a boarding party.
What is it?
Father's lightsaber. I suggest you try it again, Luke.
Commander Skywalker, do you copy? A Jedi Knight! I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And we're back to the beginning. There's a lot of fonts set up on here, all from the customer, and the config is from the customer except for the minor changes that I made for it in order to allow for the accent arrows, the accent pixels for the crystal chamber, and of course setting it up with the vocal menu as well. So let's put in a blade, and then we can call this it for the video. So to put on the blade, I like to stick it straight up and then take the blade and put it in. You can kind of see it off to the side of the screen here. I have to move it to the side because of the camera. Put it down, and then I like to just hold it there while I screw in all the set screws. So this one, I believe, has multiple, not just one. Yes, we've got 1, 2, 3. So it comes with 3 set screws. Just tighten all 3 of them down, and then I guess I'll just lay it here so you can see it. This thing looks really, really awesome.
His lightsaber.
Yes. A Jedi's weapon.
After installing this, I can fully appreciate it. So now that it's fully installed, it is awesome. I absolutely love this thing, and I probably need to get one for myself in the future, just because of how completely amazing and cool looking this lightsaber is. And it's fantastic for display as well with the crystal reveal.
I've come.
Master Sky.
Where is
So I'll quickly just show you some of the different fonts here
It's
for
just
the
Ben
colors.
these days. Ben? Obi-Wan.
So what I told you.
the dark saber?
Ahsoka Tano! Bo-Katan sent me.
Rey Skywalker.
Ben Solo.
Pringles.
Split.
Ancient integration.
Seismic charges. What's the matter, Colonel Sand?
Prepare a boarding.
What is it?
Father's lightsaber. I suggest you try it again.
Commander Skywalker, do you copy? A Jedi Knight. I am a Jedi.
Alright, and we're back to the
Like my
beginning.
father.
And that about does it for this lightsaber, so I'll see you back at the face camera angle to close off the video. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed checking out this Luke VeeOne with the crystal chamber reveal. It was a really cool lightsaber to build, and the result was actually way, way nicer than the process of building it. But thank you, Logan, for giving me the opportunity to install this. It is a super, super cool lightsaber, and thank you for trusting me with making another lightsaber for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, And if you have any resource questions, they're all down in the description of the video. Hope you like the lightsaber. It will be sent out to you very, very shortly. And to everyone else, look forward to all the future lightsaber builds I have for you.